If you see a guy fiddling with wires and batteries and something that looks like a road flare under his jacket, don't wait to see what happens. That's time to leave. Hi there, and welcome to this episode of the Guns Podcast US. Thanks for joining us here on one of the world's biggest gun talk programs as we discuss the interesting stuff that makes up the world of shooting. Of course, I'm your host, Brent Wheat, and I'll be joined in just a moment by our co-host, Roy Huntington. But before we get into the meat of the discussion, here's a quick word from our great sponsor, EOTech.
Best known for their legendary holographic weapon sights, EOTech is built for speed, precision, and rock-solid reliability. That focus extends across their lineup, including high-performance rifle scopes for tactical use and hunting, plus durable pistol optics for professionals and enthusiasts alike. EOTech also delivers advanced night vision, thermal, and laser systems trusted by military and law enforcement worldwide. To explore the full lineup, visit eotechinc.com.
Well, Roy, I always introduce you and then I say something to try and get a weird response, and I'm not going to do that today. I'm kind of being monotone. So how are you, Roy?
I'm happy because I have a new mug that I'm having my hot tea in. I know. Shameless endorsement. There you go. Right. That's there wonderful. It is. And it's nice.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, we were kind of casting around for a topic, and I think, you know, it's hard to ignore a national and international goings on right now. We're obviously, at least at the moment we record this, of course, things can change minute by minute, but as it stands now, we're in a war with Iran. And there's lots of thoughts and opinions and ideas, and we're not going to get into the right or wrong, all of that. But let's talk about how that affects us, John and Susie Citizen, me and you, the great masses, and we're going to talk about how these current events can actually affect what we're doing here in the good old US of A. So if you weren't aware, Roy and I are longtime retired police officers. We've dealt with a lot of interesting and unusual situations. We've been in on joint planning sessions. We've received intel from state and federal partners, and so we're kind of familiar with what your local cops are hearing, and we're going to talk eventually about some of the things that we think folks ought to be aware of and prepared for as things go forward. So, Roy, I got to start out here. One of the things that really inspired me was I saw another one of these federal warnings that come out and go to all law enforcement that something may happen sometime, somewhere by somebody, so be ready. What is the point of that? I know you've seen many of those in your career.
I know the sky is falling.
Yeah.
Do you remember when the federal government used to do the terrorist alerts that today,
right,
everyone should be in condition yellow?
Yeah.
Right? And then, or condition orange, which means that we've heard that there might be something going to happen, but we might be wrong, but you never know, so you should keep your eyes open.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know what that does is it fearmongers, if you ask me. Yeah.
That, and it desensitizes people. If they didn't put that stuff out every day and then suddenly we're on condition orange, everybody's going to go, whoa, okay, something's happening. But if you do it, it's the boy that cried wolf. And frankly, I blame it to the cowardice of civil servants. And again, I've been on that side of it. If they get any kind of intel, actionable, legitimate, or just some knucklehead posting on social media, they're afraid that if something does happen and they didn't share that they're going to get in trouble and they might lose their job. So we're going to keep sending out alerts every single day of the year about any possible thing that could happen. And I think all that does is desensitize all of us. So,
well, I agree. Yeah. The other thing though is people revert to training, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I'm sorry, but 99% of the people out here have not ever had any training. with anything like this. And I mean, that's okay. This is America. I'm glad you haven't had to have it, right? But it doesn't do anybody any good, because if somebody says, "Oh, be careful and be alert and watch out," well, they don't know what to look for. They wouldn't know what to do if they saw it. They're not prepared to deal with it. So I think that time would be better spent. They should be saying things like, we would like you to keep your eyes open. Here are 5 things you should look for.
Yep.
If you encounter one of them, you should do this.
Yep.
I mean, let's give these people some tools to work with.
And that's a perfect segue into where we're going with this episode, because I'm not sure how I'm going to title it once we actually get done and I'm going to post it. But kind of my working title right now is "You're the First Responder." And, as retired cops, we always prided ourselves on we ran towards problems and gunfire. And I'm so happy that we have men and women in our country that are willing to do that. But when you get right down to it, if anything happens, again, anything ranging from one crazy guy that is intent on harming people to some kind of literal foreign action, who the people that are most affected is us. And we're actually the first responders, because if you're not taken out in the first wave of whatever happens, you're right there. And we always used to say as cops that, when seconds count, we're only minutes away. And, we jokingly used to say, look, if you're going to be in a gunfight, call us. I'll come. I'll bring my friends. I'll bring a bunch of friends with a bunch of guns. But you got to kind of handle things until we get there. And that's, I think, in my opinion, that's kind of where I want this episode to go, is we're going to talk about realistically what the world looks like right now, and hopefully give you some actionable items to be thinking about. We're not trying to fearmonger. We're not trying to scare anybody. We're just kind of pointing out where we feel things are right now. And again, kind of that things folks can do to make their world a little bit safer if things happen. And we all hope they certainly don't. So this goes back to preparedness, Roy. It's a point we hammer all the time. And where when somebody goes, well, what should we do, Roy? That's the most open-ended question in the world. But how do you answer that for folks?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't worry about it too much.
Yeah.
Because really, I mean, yes, there may be cells that are ready to be activated. Who knows? I think, as we said before the show started, we need to worry more about the lone wolves, the radicalized, 25-year-old. We've already had 2 or 3 of those happen, right? Yeah. So, in my opinion, if you live in more the rural parts of America, if you live in more small town America, if you're out of the major big cities, dense urban hysterical people. If there's not a Jewish temple next door to you, right? Let's just be honest. And I don't think you have a lot to worry about any more than you would worry about any kind of daily events that could happen to you. Yep. Now, having said that, I also think it's wise to be prepared. And so, I live by Joplin. What are the odds of something like that happening in Joplin? Pretty remote, right? But I pay attention. I look. I say, is that suspicious? Why does he have a big backpack? Is he looking at the church standing around outside? And that's the kind of stuff I think you can do. We can't change the war that's going on right now. We can't, become soldiers. We can't go to the front lines and fight. We can't, let's be realistic. I'm not going to waste any energy at that, but we certainly can affect what's in our influence and control area, which means that, if you're at the mall and you see somebody suspicious, well, then it's really okay to pay attention to that. Yeah. And if somebody says, well, you're just being paranoid, smile and nod your head and go contact the cop. Yeah. I mean, just take some action. So.
Well, and thinking about that, it's a good rule that I've heard it said before, that don't let politeness get in the way of your safety and survival.
We've seen it so many times.
So many times.
Oh, I didn't want anyone to think that I was, just being worried. And then we hear her again and she's dead. You know? Yeah. No,
Well, and go ahead.
well, I was going to say, I mean, it's like, this happened to a case in San Diego where somebody smelled smoke in a theater, and when they interviewed them later, because everything worked out, right? But they were interviewing people later and saying, "Wow, what'd you think about what was going on?" And they said, "Well, I smelled smoke, but I wasn't really sure, and I didn't want really people to get worried if it was unnecessary."
Yeah.
Really?
Super. Yeah.
And so don't be that person, And I want to say one more thing, if you don't mind. I answer the vast majority of the comments on our website and on our YouTube channel. And I want to acknowledge right up front, yes, we are two elderly gentlemen. Okay. And don't think that we're just reliving the old days and wanting to be today's experts and stuff like that. Guys like us have decades of experience in the real world. And so I've been to riots, I've been to terrorist attacks, I worked the Rodney King riots. I mean, Brent and I have seen these things, and so it's not inappropriate to pay attention when experience talks. And so just remember that, okay? So,
yeah.
All right.
Good point. And, when you get right down to it, violence is violence. And people, I don't think we look at it that way. It's, well, he got attacked by a crazy guy walking down the street, or he got attacked by a sleeper terrorist cell and they wiped him out. You're still just as injured or dead. So regardless of your viewpoint, your outlook, your preparedness level, and all that, when you get right down to it, it's violence. And I got to say, who's more expert with day-to-day violence than cops? So I think that's kind of our bona fides. So, if you're prepared for the crazy neighbor who kind of goes off and tries to hurt you or your neighbor, you're much better prepared if that 1 in a million sleeper cell decides to attack the federal building that you're there, answering jury duty or whatever. So when we're talking about violence, I think the cause might be a little different right now because there's geopolitical events going on. But when you get right down to it, somebody trying to hurt or kill you or a loved one or a bystander, it doesn't matter what their motivation is. What matters is they're trying to do something bad right now. So I think we get kind of wrapped around the axle about that, don't you think?
Criminal's a criminal.
Yeah.
And I think I want two people to think about this. I mean, we'll try to give you some actual skills before we're done here, but the number one is that things happen fast. And so you've probably seen, you're driving along, all of a sudden somebody pulls out in front of you and you hit them, maybe have an accident. Well, you didn't want that to happen. Well, I mean, were you training for it? Were you paying attention? Did you anticipate that it was going to happen? Probably not. And so these other things happen the same way. Think of them as a traffic accident. In other words, you're strolling down the street, minding your own business with your family, and suddenly some lunkhead comes running up holding a stick of dynamite that he just lit. I mean, it literally happens that fast.
Yeah.
And so now rather than standing there flat-footed and saying, whoa, I can't believe this is really happening. The biggest thing I want to get out there today is that you need to take action. And if you take action, you need to have thought about what you were going to do beforehand.
Yeah.
And otherwise you'll stand there and you'll say, well, I want to take action, but I'm not sure what I should do.
Yeah. Well, for years it was fight or flight. And then we finally realized it's fight, flight, or freeze. And Roy, I'll give you a quiz. In the face of violence or danger, either one, what do most people do? Fight, flight, or freeze?
Freeze.
Absolutely.
Freeze. I couldn't believe it was happening to me. And by then it is over.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's as simple as that.
So how do we combat that? Another softball question. How do you combat that whole idea of, oh my gosh, what do I do now? This is terrible. And I'll just stand here and scream and wring my hands. And it's too late by then. But how can folks be ready for that? Well,
it's actually pretty darn easy. And I mean, if you're a certified operator or a former anti-terrorist unit and all that, you're so many leagues above what we're doing here right now that I'm not even going to go there. All right.
Yeah.
We need people like you. We're glad you're out there. But if you're just the regular person out there, there's a game you can play, and it's not corny, and it's okay to talk out loud while you're doing it. Truly, you have to distance yourself from the perception of people around you. And that is to play the what if game. And I'm sure Brent will know exactly what that is, because when you're a policeman, you're working a beat car, you pretty much play the what if game all the time. And the what if game is, I'm driving up the street now. What would I do if that guy in the right lane suddenly swerved to the left, right? And you stop and you think, okay, well, if he started to swerve, I would brake hard and move back, or I would, whatever you decide you think you want to do. And so now you drive on a little bit more, and then you come to an intersection and there's a pedestrian. What would I do if that pedestrian suddenly ran in front of my car? Right? And now the next day you're in the mall, and as you're walking down the mall, you're playing what if, right? It just takes seconds. You look up and you think, what would I do if somebody was on the escalator and I saw that he had a gun in his hand? What would I do? Would I run? Would I hide? Would I draw my gun and engage him? But the beauty of all this is that if you think about these things, right, wrong, or otherwise, you will at least have given it some thought. And so now when you look up someday and there's a guy on an escalator with a gun, you've thought about that, and you may be able to think, oh, okay, I've been here, and I'm going to run and hide and take my family with me. And you won't waste as much time going, oh, holy cow, what do I do now? I mean, do you agree? I can't think
absolutely.
of a stronger tool that anybody can do to make themselves safer.
And the beauty of it is, it doesn't matter if you're completely unarmed, if you're a 98-pound weakling, or you're 98 years old, or you're a strapping, a former operator that just is on your day off and you're carrying 3 guns and a samurai sword. It doesn't matter. All those people can do the same thing, and they should do the same thing. If this happens, I'm going to do this.
What if?
And
yeah, you're playing. Well, I drive my tractor around my property all the time here, and I've got some steep hills, and I have a pond, and I have some big trees with big boughs. Well, I absolutely play what if when I drive my tractor. What if I'm driving on the berm by my pond and the tractor falls into the water? What am I going to do? How am I going to get to my seatbelt? Do I have my pocket knife that I could use to cut the strap if I need to?
Yep.
I mean, before I go in the woods, I always look up and I think, what would I do if that branch suddenly fell down in front of me? Where would I run to? And so you can apply this across the board. What would I do if my 5-year-old didn't eat his green beans tonight? Right? I mean, as corny as that is, that's all you're doing. So.
Yep. Well, rather than beat that into the ground, I hope people understand that to me is the linchpin of being a prepared American is having kind of a plan in mind and being aware of things, because we didn't really talk about that, but just being aware of stuff going on around you, because it all goes part and parcel. You can't be making a plan about the guy carrying the gun if you're not aware that, oh, look, that guy up there has a gun.
Well, don't be this all day.
Yeah. Well, that's,
I mean, it never ceases to amaze me. People in public places, and you'll see 25 people in public places sitting around a fountain or something. Everybody is looking down at their phone, completely oblivious to what's going on around them.
And I read a report just today, and I've not verified this, but it was reported that the latest information from traffic accidents over the last 2 years, 25% of are involving a phone or electronic device. 25% of accidents now. And thinking about it, I believe it. Oh, I was on my phone. Oh, I was texting.
Always.
Always.
I just read because it might have been part of the same article. And it said that the average, like say up to 25-year-old, spends 7 hours a day.
It was part of that story because I was shocked.
On their phone, and it said not counting working or computer time.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So that means that, think about it for a minute, 7 hours of their day, they're oblivious to what's going on around them.
Yep.
But they're not going to care. So,
Well, that's, as we've said before, that's being a volunteer victim.
Yeah.
So anyway, if you've gotten to the point you are aware and you're playing that what if game, the next point that I would make is you've got to execute a plan. And that goes back to fight, flight, or freeze. If you're going to fight, okay, have a plan to fight. If you're going to flee, that makes sense too, depending on the circumstance. But the biggest thing is just avoid that freeze, because rarely will freeze help you. Fighting may help you, fleeing may help you, but freezing, all you're hoping for is luck will not send something your way. And
well,
go ahead.
When Clint Smith used to teach, sometimes he would talk about shoot and move, right? And he would say, "Can you hit my hand?" Right? And so it's like, yeah, we could hit that. And he would go, "Now hit it."
Yeah.
Right? And it just wham, it hits you. And so that's why what you say, when it's you and your family and you're walking up the street in Target or something, and you see something happen, you see a guy in the aisle and he's got a backpack and he reaches in, he pulls out a knife.
Yeah.
Well, move.
Oh,
move now. Don't stop. Don't look at it. Don't gawk. Don't be amazed. Don't anything. That's the best advice I can give.
Yeah, and getting into the current geopolitical situation, one of the coolest things I ever got to do was go to a school in the Western United States. It was kind of the precursor to bomb school. And we actually got to make suicide vests and detonate them. And first of all, if you ever see one, it's the most scary and horrifying thing there is. But the point that they were trying to make was, by the time you see the guy do the typical, it's too late, because it just takes a split second. And what people never understand is you don't outrun a bomb or a shrapnel. Once it happens, it's over. It's moving at 20 to 40,000 feet per second. You're not going to duck. You're not going to get behind something. So again, it's kind of that idea. If you see a guy fiddling with wires and batteries and something that looks like a road flare under his jacket, don't wait to see what happens. That's time to leave. So that's just one of those things where you've got to think through that. If you think that you're in a situation where somebody might do something really bizarre like that, then you got to kind of work that out, that I can't stand around and watch, or I'll keep an eye on him. Well, you may keep an eye on him to the point that it's too late. So anyway, I wanted to bring that up.
And I think you don't focus on that either.
Yeah.
Because I think the odds of somebody wearing a explosive vest in our country it could happen, definitely. Yeah. I don't see it happening, probably. But what you should be looking for are people armed with knives, people who pull out a gun in a situation where they shouldn't probably have a gun in their hand, right?
Yeah.
Or you're with a group of people on a corner holding up signs advertising the kids' car wash, and you see somebody drive by 5 times, right? And is he going to try to run into your crowd now the next time? I mean, these are the kind of everyday things you need to be looking for. I mean, I agree with Brent, absolutely. People see the movies where they see like a bomb goes off and then people like duck and run. It's like, oh no, you're way already dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you don't believe me, go on YouTube, watch some high energy explosives go off, and it's like, now.
there was a famous one from one of the Gulf Wars where and it was military guys, I believe, United States Army. They were watching I believe it was a bombing of a big building. But what I remember was they're like, oh, wow, look at that. And all of a sudden probably a fist size or bigger rock comes sailing right at the camera at, again, 500 miles per hour, so fast that if it had been coming toward anybody, they wouldn't have got out of the way. It just happened to miss.
Yeah.
But if you can look that up, it's just amazing how fast they're here. And
yeah, I saw that. You're right. It's like everyone's laughing and talking, and all of a sudden,
yeah.
right.
Surprise.
It's like they would have all been dead. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, look, yes, be prepared. Yes, play what if. There's nothing wrong with that. Pay attention. Don't be paranoid about it. It's, you're not, it's the odds of it going to happen are pretty darn remote, but I think if it does happen and you're prepared, that helps a lot. So now, do we talk about what does prepared mean when it comes to guns and stuff?
Sure. That's why people watch us. So we're going to talk about that.
Okay.
So for me, the advice is pretty simple, and it echoes what we've said all along. Have a gun. Have a gun. I know that's not the answer that a lot of people are seeking, but it comes down to having a gun or not having a gun. And having a gun is a lot better, especially in a circumstance where the other person has a gun. So I'm being a bit facetious there, but truly that's what it's about for me. And we've talked about before, especially as you get to be a seasoned citizen, it's, I've made it this far. I didn't need a gun. Well, it only takes once. So my big advice to folks, have a gun that you can shoot, that you have shot in, say, the last few little whiles, because if you decide to pull that one out of the sock drawer and blow the dust off since you bought it 5 years ago, and I'm going to start carrying that, you're not a gunfighter. I'm sorry, you're just not. So anyway, Roy, you take it from there.
I think the most important thing for you to do, other than have a gun, if you decide to do that, is decide what is your role going to be. And so when you see that guy pull the machete out of his backpack in the aisle at Walmart, and you're armed, what is your role? And are you a pack leader? Are you a protector dog? Do you have the skills? Do you have the training? Do you have the experience to go toward the fight and engage and save people? Hats off to you if you are. It would be hard for me to turn my back, right? But we've had experience. We've faced those situations before. You know what to expect. I've already made that decision what I would do.
Yeah.
But the other thing you need to do is you also have to weigh that with, I'm here with my family. Where are my obligations? I get my family to safety first. Now then, maybe if it's still going on, you can evaluate what you want to do after that. But I think it's, it happens fast usually. It's not like on TV. Chances are good if you shoot somebody with a handgun, they're not going to fall down right away, which may surprise you.
Yeah.
But I think for me, that's the important role. I am a firm believer of avoid as much as possible. And so if I see somebody looking and acting suspicious, I want to get away from there. And if appropriate, I'll notify authorities.
Absolutely.
If I'm caught flat-footed, and in other words, literally there the guy ahead of me is now pulling a knife out of his backpack, well then I've already decided is that for me, my personal handgun is, as Daryl says, it's a get off me thing, and so I'll pull my gun and I will try to get to safety. In my own opinion, I've already decided if he's trying to hurt somebody, I'm going to intervene. Yeah. So, that's my decision. I think part of that is that I'm old and I don't have much time left. And so I don't mind making that commitment if I can save some people's lives. But really, if you're, 30 years old, you have a wife and 3 kids with you, then maybe engaging isn't really the smartest thing for you to do.
Exactly.
So be thinking about that. Yeah.
And you touched on something we've never really talked about, but the fact that even with major caliber handguns, people do a lot of stuff after taking what will be non-survivable hits. And, I'm sure a lot of you do what we do, which is pass around these closed circuit TV files that you periodically get. It's funny, a lot of them seem to be out of Brazil for whatever reason, but if you have any question what a shooting looks like, go look at some of those. And I think if you watch a few of them, you will be shocked and amazed at people taking really multiple hits from, big handguns, and they still do a lot of stuff. So again, that TV movie thing of I'm going to shoot him and he'll go through the saloon window and then I'm a hero, and it doesn't work that way. They keep coming. They don't even realize they're hit, and they're still wanting to do to you or a bystander or whatever. So again, that factors into it that, I can take the shot and he'll drop his knife and melt into a puddle of goo. It don't work that way. You need to be aware, and you need to have the experience to at least understand how things really do work like that. So you're not constructing a false scenario in your head. So,
well, especially when you're dealing with somebody who fancies themselves a terrorist now. When you get some lone wolf who suddenly decided it's time for him to activate, he's probably pretty motivated.
Very motivated.
He's already decided he doesn't care if he dies.
Yep.
Right? He'll have a gun or a knife or a bomb or something. Right? So you're already dealing with somebody who has made the commitment that he's going to die, so he doesn't care.
Yeah.
And remember, you could shoot somebody right in the heart and blow their heart completely into pieces, and their blood will still be their brain will still be oxygenated for probably 6 to 8 more seconds.
Yeah,
right?
At least.
Well, okay. Well, let's pretend for a second. You ready? Here you go. Bang! I just got shot. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005, 1006, 1007, 1008. Okay, I was still shooting.
Yeah. Or stabbing or
whatever, or reaching for the bomb button, Yeah. So, I don't want people to be hysterical about this, and we're not the topic experts. We do have some experience here. We have faced some serious situations, and I think the people who are listening, if they just keep it simple, and like I said, play what if you have a gun that you're comfortable with, then make sure, as Brent says, it's not the dust buffalo collector from the drawer. Get it out, shoot it, clean it, oil it, make sure it's all right. Talk to your family about these things. And that's another very important thing. My wife and I were retired cops who used to work together. Susie's covered me on traffic stops, and I've covered her on stops and stuff. And so we already know what we're going to do. If something happens, we're going to cover each other, and we're going to,
I've got to laugh, Roy. I'm sure Susie would be, get behind me, Roy.
Oh, she always elbows me out of the way and moves to the front when anything's ever happened. But if you have a wife, for instance, and you need to talk about this, you need to say, especially if she's kind of a bit anti-gun, maybe, like she's not real happy that you have a gun, you carry it. But you need to come to terms, and you need to say, listen, if we're ever in Walmart with, our 2 children and I, and either one of us sees something and says, run, that our job is to run. Our job is not to say, what? We haven't got the juice Kool-Aid yet. No. Or if you are the armed husband and she's not, when you put your arm out and tell them, get behind that counter, well, then they need to go get behind the counter.
Yeah.
They need to not engage you in a philosophical discussion of whether or not you're mean. And so pay attention, talk to your loved ones. This is all what if, right? What if we were in dinner at our favorite restaurant and someone walked in the front door with a machete and threatened us? What would we do?
Yeah.
Think about it. And then, like I said, like Brent said, if you have a gun, learn how to use it. You keep your head screwed on.
Yeah. And I will say in closing, you made a point that I wanted to expand on. Again, this isn't paranoia. A lot of this, I hope, is just a gut check or, kind of a rehearsal, mental rehearsal for a lot of folks. If this is all new to you, I hope, you've learned something that you can take away. But the bottom line is I always feel better knowing I've got the gear, I've got the training, I've got the awareness, and now I can go about my day living life to the fullest, having fun. And oh yeah, if a tornado comes, if a car accident happens, or some Durka decides that it's time for him to go meet whoever and all the virgins or whatever, I'm ready for whatever. There's nothing guaranteeing you'll make it through, but you can at least put the odds much more in your favor. And that to me is very comforting.
Well, people have most people, or maybe many people today, have spare tires in their car, right? Mm-hmm. Or a tire inflation kit or something. I know personally, when I'm about to drive across the desert, I check my spare tire and make sure that it's full. And now I can drive across the desert much more relaxed.
Yeah.
As you say, enjoy the scenery. I'm not constantly saying, what if I get a flat? 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 Right. And so if you're prepared, if you've thought about these things beforehand, if you and your family have discussed it, it's no different than talking about, which nobody ever does. They talk about, if I wake up at nighttime and I smell smoke and I say fire, what should everyone do? I mean, most families I know have never talked about that.
Never.
Right. So it's no different than that. And so if you have those kind of things, and if you decide to be armed and you're familiar with your gun and you have a good gun, you have good ammunition, you know how to shoot it. Well, gosh, you've got a spare tire with air in it.
Yep. Yeah. And I was laughing because I know for a fact you're like me. First of all, you do check the air in your spare because people don't. Got a tire inflator, probably got a can of Fix-A-Flat. And I've also got a satellite communicator, which now our iPhones will serve that function. But yeah, there's multiple layers of redundancy. And again, that's not a burden to me. That's peace of mind.
It's peace of mind, which is a good thing about all of this. Is if you participate in what we're talking about, that will give you peace of mind.
Yep, absolutely. So, and then you can just enjoy life to the fullest like Roy Huntington does, because that guy certainly does.
I'll tell you what, I'll be damned if I'm going to let them scare me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I dare you to try and scare me.
Yeah, just don't go there.
All right. Well, good discussion. We want to hear what you got to say. Reach out, editor@gunspodcast.us, or leave a comment. And yes, we know we're old, we're fuds, and yeah, okay, whatever, great. But we really do enjoy the majority of those comments. So if you're watching on YouTube, please leave us one. So before we go, we've got to pay the bills a little bit. Here's a quick word from our great sponsor, EOTech.
To explore the full lineup, visit eotecinc.com.
Well, before we go, there's one other thing that you reminded me of, Roy, and that would be merch. We've got merch, T-shirts and hoodies, and Susie Huntington's favorite sweatshirt and mugs and all that good stuff. So
no baloney. I went online and I bought 2 mugs and a sweatshirt because, we wanted to make sure everything worked right. Yeah. And so I got the sweatshirt, and it's actually really nice. It's like a luxury kind of, it's thick and all that. And you know what? She's worn it every day.
That's great.
Yeah. She did say, don't tell Brent.
Well, now that I know, but she's going to get even. She's going to go on a hunt here that I should have gone on. So it all comes out in the wash. But anyway, go to Guns Podcast US. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, go to gunsmagazine.com. You can read lots of great stories from your favorite gun writers, including little old me. And I'm sure there's some Roy Huntington stuff still on there too. So gunsmagazine.com. You can watch or listen to the podcast there, and make sure you check out all of our writing and merch at gunspodcast.us. So I think we've done it. We've talked about it. I hope you take this to heart, and it gives you some peace of mind going forward in what is a really strange, crazy world that we live in now. So anyway, on behalf of my co-host, Roy Huntington, I am your host of the Guns Podcast US, Brent Wheat, reminding you, as always, now it's time to get out there and get shooting.